In 1950, when India qualified for the FIFA World Cup, excitement surged throughout the nation. However, in a twist of fate, the Indian national football team chose not to grace the tournament. The reason? A peculiar aversion to playing in cleats. It's a decision that still haunts football enthusiasts and players alike. Arnav Chaudhry, the former COO of Mumbai City FC, bluntly labels it as the All India Football Federation's most significant blunder. The consequence wasn't just about footwear preferences, it was a missed opportunity that echoes through the years. Instead of solely Messi and Ronaldinho dominating the subcontinent's football posters, we could have seen the rise of global Indian football stars. So what led to this unfortunate downfall of a sport that once outshone cricket in India? It's a question that lingers, leaving us to ponder the what-ifs and envision a different trajectory for Indian football. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. India, with over 1 billion people, hasn't managed to produce a single football player for European leagues. Meanwhile, China, not exactly ruling the football world, has seen players like Sun Jihai in Man City, Li Tie in Everton, and Zheng Che in Charlton grace the Premier League. They even have some players doing their thing in the Bundesliga. Now, I get it. India is a massive country with a serious urban-rural gap, and poverty is a big issue. But here's the kicker. Even with tough circumstances, some developing nations in Africa and South America are churning out football talents. These guys not only make it big in Europe, but also bring back their skills and money to boost their home nations. And get this, didn't Syria get closer to qualifying for a World Cup than India ever did? It makes you wonder what's holding India back from making its mark on the global football stage. When it comes to cricket, especially in India, it's all glitz and glamour. They're throwing around million-dollar paychecks for just a month of playing in the IPL. And get this, cheerleaders are part of the show. Recently, they've even got these Masters tournaments with retired football legends like Ronaldinho, Giggs, and Crespo playing quick indoor games. Now, you'd think with all this hype, Indian football would be on the brink of something big. But here's the twist. Even with the love for football, there's not much professional representation, even among British Indians who are crazy about the sport. Sure, there are guys like Michael Chopra and Neil Taylor who are kinda connected to India, but the only British Asian with both parents from Asia playing pro football is Zesh Rahman, representing Pakistan. So what's holding Indian football back? That's the big question. And is there a booming period around the corner that could make football more popular than cricket? Back in the early days after India gained independence, they were no slouch in the football scene. Would you believe it, in 1950, India actually qualified for the World Cup. There was a catch though. FIFA said no barefoot players, and the Indian team, in a bold move, said no shoes, no game. Skipping to 1964, India made it to the Asian Cup finals, giving it their all but eventually losing to Israel. The Olympics were another playground for India. In 1956, they trounced Australia 7-1, leaving a mark on the world stage. Now, when it comes to local club rivalries, India's teams battle it out in the Durand Cup, one of the oldest football tournaments ever. Here's a cool snippet. India had a player once don the Celtic jersey. Can't quite recall the name or if he played official games, but he left the scene due to homesickness. So when someone says India isn't historically tied to football, that's not exactly the full story. There's a whole chapter of Indian football history that deserves a closer look. Many people argue that the sports system in India is corrupt and the country doesn't support the sport. There have been passionate individuals who dedicate their lives to football. However, they usually end up playing in the I-League, India's top league, at best, and then retire to become coaches after getting their licenses from the AFC. The challenge is, why don't these passionate individuals succeed in the sport? The answer lies in starting training early, getting proper coaching, exposure, and financial stability. The lack of these factors results in poor development and consequently average players. For instance, a coach who holds an AFC C license might only earn around $500 a month, and he'd be considered one of the better paid coaches. Despite India having a massive football fan base with more fans than the UK, the system's shortcomings hinder the growth of talented players. The main issue now is the lack of a basic coaching system for young players. India is a huge country with 1.4 billion people, but they're missing out on potential talent for a few reasons. A. Football is becoming popular in new places, especially urban areas, but there's still a lot of ground to cover. B. Because coaching and training aren't up to par, kids might think they have better chances in school and getting a good job instead of pursuing football. While some players in India get paid well, it's nothing compared to global football stars or cricket players. C. There's more mismanagement than corruption, but it still hurts. The Indian Football Association, or AIFF, doesn't pay well, and promising young players don't get enough opportunities. Most clubs, except for a couple at the top, don't have good youth training programs. Think about China. They weren't great at the Olympics until the 1980s, but they excelled because of good state-funded coaching starting from the basics. India and any country can do the same with the right approach. Many Indians claim that in their childhood and among their friends, football was the more preferred sport to play in school. Cricket, on the other hand, seemed boring as only 2 people at a time could actively participate. Despite this, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, or BCCI, is the wealthiest sporting body globally, and cricket at the professional level overshadows all other sports by a significant margin. It has become the primary choice for a lucrative athletic career in India, leaving little room for other sports. The frustration stems from the disparity between cricket and other sports. Even Olympic gold medalists struggle to make ends meet and resort to jobs in the railways and sponsorships while training, while cricketers earn millions through advertisements alone. Historically, there hasn't been much interest in the sport, leading to a small pool of players, weak club scenes, and a lack of skilled coaches. This hinders the development of players to a level where European clubs might show interest, and it also results in lower viewership numbers, limiting TV revenue for the association or league. The AIFF's mismanagement further hampers the growth potential, but this issue exists in many countries where football is already popular and established. Even when there is interest, turning the enjoyment of the game into a career is challenging. In India, there's a strong emphasis on getting a good education for a better life. Academic pursuits are highly competitive, and non-academic interests aren't encouraged unless there's a clear path to a good life. Cricket, being established and popular, especially with the IPL, seems to offer a clearer path to a successful life compared to football. The situation is slowly changing, with India hosting its first FIFA event, the U17 World Cup, and football overtaking hockey as the second most popular sport. The I-League has been running for a decade, and the ISL has attracted big names, even if some see it as a retirement league helping grow local interest. However, there's still a long way to go. The issue isn't a lack of capable athletes, as India has produced decent players from across different sports for decades. Success in badminton and amateur boxing, for instance, often stems from specific regions with dedicated coaches. The main problem lies in the absence of a widespread sports culture. Few people regularly attend or play sports outside specific pockets in the country. Cricket matches, apart from national team games, often have empty stadiums, even in the case of Test cricket. While IPL and ISL stadiums are packed, it's more about seeing stars, not necessarily the love for the sport itself. In India, the focus tends to be on star players rather than the sports. Domestic cricket has few viewers, and even the national championship final lacks spectators. This star-centric attitude extends to international leagues like EPL and La Liga, where local leagues like I-League struggle for attention outside certain cities like Kolkata. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below.